It's a great day in East Brunswick when you have the opportunity to celebrate and honor a resident such as Estelle Goldsmith. I'm going to read through a proclamation which will pretty much highlight just some of her accomplishments in making East Brunswick the great town that it is. It reads as follows. Whereas it is important for a community to recognize and honor citizens who selflessly give of their time and of themselves to improve the quality of life for others, as well as to acknowledge the outstanding and noteworthy achievements of those citizens that go above and beyond. Estelle Goldsmith has been an active member of the community through her volunteer work with East Brunswick Arts Commission, East Brunswick Historical Society, East Brunswick Museum, Recreation Parks Advisory Board, and Middlesex County Cultural and Heritage Commission, thereby preserving the culture, history, and arts as East Brunswick's appointed local historian. Now therefore be proclaimed that I, David Stahl, Mayor of the Township of East Brunswick, and on behalf of a grateful community, do hereby commend Estelle Goldsmith for her lifelong work toward improving the cultural life of all residents and for representing herself in East Brunswick during her 56 years of volunteer service in the community. Be it further proclaimed that I bestow this recognition upon Estelle in acknowledgement and gratitude of her volunteer service, all of which is fitting and deserved. Congratulations.
I've enjoyed working with Estelle through the years. I know that others have said that she was a driven person. I call her tenacious. I have never met a human being that was as tenacious as Estelle, fighting for what she believed in for us to profit from.
Was a very driven person. Estelle doesn't give up on something she wants done. By hook or crook, she gets it done. Just truly driven to do the things she felt were going to benefit the community. And she used us on the Arts Commission sometimes to help her get those things done. So I'm glad I was part of that.
The suburban dream was a powerful lure for city dwellers back in the 1950s, with its promise of more space, clean streets, and good schools for their children. But that wasn't enough for one housewife who moved to the area with her family back in that time. It didn't feed her soul. It didn't delight her senses. So she went about transforming her environment to create the things that were missing. The arts, history, culture. It was a massive project, decades in the making, but in the process she became a leader who would be recognized statewide. She even became a citizen of the world. In 1957, after more than a year of looking for houses outside of New York City, my parents and my younger brother and I moved from our one-bedroom apartment in the Bronx to a home in Lawrence Brook. And it was quite different from the Grand Concourse in the Poe Park area where I had just begun school. It wasn't long, though, before Estelle was yearning for the concerts, the art museums, and the history of the city. So she corralled the resources at hand. She tapped my dad, Jay Goldsmith, who was an amateur violinist, her sister, Michelle, who was an accomplished pianist, and a neighbor who was a gifted mezzo-soprano to put on concerts for her fellow residents. I was just a little kid at the time, but I remember vividly hearing my mom accompany our neighbor Sylvia Kapp sing the Habanera aria from the opera Carmen. It was just enchanting to me. And this was about the same time that Estelle set up a home studio to teach piano.
She was very much aware of the lack of identity in East Brunswick. There were no cultural events of any kind. We were, after all, a bedroom community, so to speak. People came here after the turnpike was built because it was convenient to live in the suburbs and yet have reasonable access to New York and even Philadelphia. But these people, their hometown was someplace else. And she felt that East Brunswick needed its own identity. There was some skepticism about having a historical society. What history is there in East Brunswick? Also, there was the attitude that East Brunswick being a bedroom community, so to speak, people were too busy to participate in any cultural events. Let's face it, they went to work early in the morning, mostly to New York, came back early evening. People felt there was no time for anything else. Estelle didn't believe that. Estelle believed that there was room for these things, and that's what she pursued.
As she spoke about that fire, when a historically significant building burned down, it was completely destroyed. It was a historically significant building, and there were some members of the community, Rose Sackle was amongst them. We decided to do something about it, and we felt that we should do something about preserving the heritage of our town and preserving the historically significant buildings and structures. And we decided to organize and form this organization, and that was the birth of the East Brunswick Historical Society in 1972.
When Estelle was working on starting a historical society, she had the assistance of a number of women who were very much involved in East Brunswick. Rose Sackle was one of them. These are people that might not be recognized now, but they were very well recognized back then. Grace Auer, maybe another one. Doris Herbert, just to name a few. These are all people that helped her with regard to the Historical Society, and there are other people that helped her with other programs in town, such as the museum, the Arts Commission, for example.
Estelle was wondering about, what had happened centuries before, and certainly in the areas that had not been developed. And she also became outspoken about the dangers of overdevelopment. And, she was concerned about wiping out natural species of plants and animals. And she teamed up with township resident Rose Sackle, to oppose the development of Jamesburg Park.
They were trying to preserve the land bordering East Brunswick and Jamesburg along Old Stage Road. They didn't want it built on, that was a given, but they didn't want to see the runoffs or the construction changing the plantings or the wildlife on that property. Yes, it was declared a Green Acres, part of East Brunswick.
We got an historic district in the southeastern part of the township near Old Bridge. It was put on the State Register of Historic Places in '75, and in 1977, it went on to the National Register. 19th century church in the area was renovated. It became the East Brunswick Museum, and early on, Estelle curated all the exhibits there. She also put on exhibits of history and visual arts in the East Brunswick Library, and during this period, she was chair of the Middlesex County Cultural and Heritage Commission.
Estelle, you are chairman of the Middlesex County Cultural and Heritage Commission, and you've been very instrumental in the Old Bridge, the Old District here, the Historic District preservation. You've also are a guiding light with the museum. What made you pick this particular building? Now, it was an old church.
Yes, at one time it was an old church, but it had been desanctified when we became interested in it. The historic district was placed on the register a year or two before that time, and we were very, very much involved in the research of the community, and we realized that a great deal had transpired in this area prior to our involvement there, and which involved culture, that involved the early industry, schools, art, etc. And we felt that there was so much that we wanted to share with the community, with other people living in the area of Old Middlesex County, and that they would find it worthwhile. And what better place to bring them than into the district itself. Therefore, the district would become a little more widely known, and a museum within the district would add another dimension to our community. When we realized that this had potential, we looked at it with different eyes, and we asked our mayor at that time what she thought of the possibilities. That was Mayor Jean Walling, and she was very far-sighted and interested in history as well as we were, and she thought that had also great possibilities, and we pursued it from that point on.
She was also very much active with the new historical society, the old farmhouse, the Smith farmhouse. When Smith Farms was being sold and they're building those houses there off of Milltown Road, I met with Estelle and the Historical Commission to talk about saving the farmhouse. And that's what we did. We saved that farmhouse from ever being torn down and putting a new house up in there. And we got that property for the Historical Society now.
Oh, Estelle, welcome to the show. Tell me about the Historical Society. When was it founded?
Well, the Historical Society, East Brunswick Historical Society, was founded some 37 years ago, and one of its main objectives was to preserve the sites and structures and cultural background of the community. That was one of our goals, which was very, very important to us. We started by doing a history of the lower southern part of the community, which was down in what we now call the historic district of Old Bridge. We did considerable research there, and we eventually got it on the state, by applying to the state, we got it on the state and national registers, which happened to be the first historic district in all of Middlesex County. Then we realized there was a lovely church there which was no longer being used, and we felt it would be appropriate to have a museum there. And that took quite a bit of doing, but eventually it became the East Brunswick Museum, of which we're very proud, where many of the artifacts of the community are preserved for the community to come and visit.
So in the early history of the Historical Society in the 1970s, the goals were to recognize what the historic resources were in the township, and you identified an entire district, now the Old Bridge Historic District.
First we did that, the district, then we took an inventory of all the older houses, whether it would be farms or other structures of the entire town, and we kept that as an inventory ready, so that eventually we prepared a historic district ordinance, which became the first historic preservation ordinance in the county, which we were very proud to see, and that's how we began it initially.
Estelle and her husband Jay were ardent world travelers, and after they got done exploring Western and Eastern Europe and Russia, they went on to some destinations in South America like Machu Picchu. And then they turned their attention to Asia, and they fell in love with it. I asked my mom, why do you keep going back? You've made so many trips there. And she said, it's just so different in every way. It's just fascinating to me. The look of it, the religions, the culture, the art, the music, everything about it, Over the years, they started out with Japan, China, and India, and then they went on to Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Thailand, Tibet, Nepal. There probably are more, but in 1982, on her second trip to China, Estelle she took a course at Nanjing University in China in Mandarin, and the assignment for graduation was to give her graduation speech in that language. And of course, after she did that, she got a beautiful diploma, and she proudly displayed it in the music room where she taught, and all her students saw it. In 1983, after considerable research and in recognition of the significant and diverse Asian population in East Brunswick, Estelle and Jay mounted an exhibition at the East Brunswick Museum called Splendors of the Orient. And they managed to get major works loaned for the exhibition from art collectors and museums. And I recently ran into somebody who had attended that show, and she said people were just astonished, that these collectors and museums were willing to trust East Brunswick with these wonderful pieces. I mean, and you would see everything there from Chinese ceramics from the Ming Dynasty, which was 14th century, to an exhibit of how cloisonné was made. It was just amazing stuff. Many years later, I learned that a speech that was given by Rutgers President Mason Gross had a profound effect on my mother. He said in 1959 that New Jersey was educationally impoverished and culturally bankrupt. She would say, I resented that, Here I was, I grew up in New York, and I couldn't be living in a place that was a cultural wasteland.
The East Brunswick Arts Commission is a formal group in East Brunswick that began as the East Brunswick Arts Council. It was a group of like-minded individuals who volunteered to bring arts and culture to our community.
Estelle is very big in increasing the recognition of the arts here. There was very little of the arts here. I said we had high school shows. There was nothing resembling the East Brunswick Community Arts Center. The library was very small when I got here. And so Estelle has done a big part in promoting recognition of the arts.
Wednesday night at the library, the East Brunswick Arts Commission presented Dancers in a Winter's Night, or Romance Through Dance. Bahala Jones and Roberto Garcia displayed the art of costumes, courtship, and flirtation with dance through the Renaissance period.
Hi, I'm Karen Keskis, and I'm from the East Brunswick Division of Recreation and Community Services, and I'm here today to talk about the plans for the 7th annual Our Community is Fair cultural event that will take place in East Brunswick at the Civic Center on Sunday, October 10th, from noon to 5 p.m. The Human Relations Council sponsors this event every year with the East Brunswick Arts Commission and the Division of Recreation. And joining me today to talk about the plans for the day are Rebecca Brenowitz, who is our chairperson of the Human Relations Council, and Estelle Goldsmith, who is with the East Brunswick Arts Commission.
Community is Fair Day will be presenting an abundance of goodies for everyone. In addition to delightful, tasty, traditional dishes, various arts and crafts which will be exhibited and displayed, a wealth of entertainment which will focus on the different ethnic groups represented. We will celebrate our diversity of our society by presenting an international parade of costumes.
But I know she takes tremendous pride in the fact that in those early days, they offered a three-concert season to residents for $5. These were world-renowned artists like pianists Gary Graffman, Earl Wild, guitarist Andre Segovia, groups like the New Jersey Symphony, and the Ballet Folklorico of Mexico. What I also learned many years later was that the talent agencies in New York that provided these artists had set up special community concert bureaus that were serving smaller towns and rural areas. And they would, depending upon openings in artists' schedules, they could deliver, a big name artist for very little money. The thing is, though, you just had to buy the season. But I think that, towns like East Brunswick were tremendous beneficiaries of this policy.
The first thing up is the September 25th Our Community is Fair celebration. How is the Arts Commission involved with that?
Yes, actually it is presented, co-sponsored by the East Brunswick Recreation Department and the Human Relations Council. But we are a very, very obvious participating factor in the event, and we will be there, and we're very excited about this event. It is going to be all around our gorgeous pond in our municipal complex. It's going to present obviously cultural events. There'll be curios, there'll be different types of ethnic foods, there'll be ethnic examples of workshops, there'll be ethnic displays, there'll be programs going on all day for their entertainment, and there'll be projects for children to keep them occupied during this time. It's going to be free for the public and free for parking and attendance, and we're very excited about this event. And all those who come, please stop by at the East Brunswick Arts Commission booth and pick up some flyers about our forthcoming event.
So Estelle, it's a beautiful day, a lovely turnout. Tell us a little bit about what's so special about this festival.
About this festival? The fact that we have many artists who have joined us today, and craftspeople, people of quality, and we have maintained a high standard, and we are interested in having people attend it. So the community appreciates it because they know they have a quality festival each year at this time, and we're proud of maintaining this standard. And it's wonderful for the general feeling of the good feeling for the township, where we all congregate together and enjoy one another's company. And this.
I was doing a program. I had started a program here at the library called the Raritan Poets, and we met every month, and people from Middlesex County who liked to write poetry would come, and we'd share poetry. We'd kind of give each other feedback on our work. I would introduce different sorts of poets and poetry to the group. We did a number of poetry readings over the years here at the library, and there was a Borders bookstore at the time that we did a number of readings and food pantry kinds of things. And at the time, both my kids were taking piano lessons with Estelle Goldsmith. So once a week, I would sit on this lovely little sofa in her music room and listen to my children learn how to play the piano with Estelle. And we had a chance to talk, and Estelle learned that, I had, that I was a poet and that I had this program going. So she invited me to be part of the Arts Council. And I was part of the Arts Council for, I think, at least 5 years. In the late 1990s to the early 2000s. And afterwards, I continued doing programs for the Arts Council, also the Historical Society, which Estelle was also running. While I was on the Arts Commission, I ran a program called Arts and Civic Life. So we would take historic speeches, poems, during various holidays and federal holidays, and we would create kind of these videos. I guess now they're probably pretty primitive-looking videos of music, image, art, poetry, speech, and to kind of reconnect, allow the community to reconnect to poems by Robert Frost, the Declaration of Independence, the Gettysburg Address, beautiful pieces of public spoken word that really shape who we are as Americans.
The deed of gift was many deeds of war. To the land vaguely realizing westward, but still unstoried, artless, unenhanced, such as she was, such as she would become. For Independence Day, this is Shelley Benaroya on behalf of the East Brunswick Arts Commission.
I know she had a desire to bring Bernarda Shawn to East Brunswick to speak about the life and works of her husband, Ben Shawn. She wanted to do this so badly that she developed an association with her and got an invitation to come visit her in her home in Roosevelt, New Jersey. She hopped on her bicycle with her son at her side and pedaled from her home in East Brunswick all the way to Roosevelt, New Jersey to meet with her. And then Bernarda Shawn was at our East Brunswick Library with the Arts Commission, sharing the fact that she was an artist as well as her husband, Ben Shawn, bringing works and stories and an afternoon of sharing that I remember to this day. It was just so very, very touching.
I knew Estelle from the Young Musicians Concert. She had created the Young Musicians Concert every year. And even before I was elected official, it would be televised on our local TV like this one here. We used to be called Channel 8, but now it became, now it's Channel 26. But it was Estelle's music, a Young Musicians Concert was always something really special.
In 1985, Estelle and Jerry Kopczynski, who was the high priest of string teaching in East Brunswick schools, got together to create the Young Musicians Project. This was, they held competitions for young people, and the winners would appear in a public concert. You know, for teachers who are teaching advancing students, this was a godsend because they're always looking for ways to motivate their students. And it was also a wonderful way to enrich the audience, you know, with the music of these young people. Originally, the competition was just for East Brunswick, but then they greatly expanded the boundaries geographically, and the project went on for a remarkable 33 years.
I'm Estelle Goldsmith, Chairman of the East Brunswick Arts Commission, and this evening, the East Brunswick Recreation Department and East Brunswick Arts Commission welcome you to the 18th Annual East Brunswick Young Musicians Concert. This project is produced on behalf of musically talented young people in grades 8 through 12 who reside in East Brunswick. Qualified students are invited to participate in auditions before a board of juried independent judges who will base their assessment on the performances and submit their recommendations. This year, we have an unusually fine group of young performers. The evening promises to be a most unusual event consisting of wonderfully aspiring young artists.
The first time I went to one of those concerts, I did not have my students auditioning yet. I had just heard of them, that there were going to be these student concerts in the library, and I thought, I'm going to go pop in and have a listen. And I was floored by the level of musicianship in that room. And it was such a wonderful experience. And so over the years, I decided I'm going to get my students involved. And they always looked forward to it, and they worked really hard for it too. And I've seen more and more of the students in town coming, which always really makes me very happy. And I think that was part of Estelle's vision too. I know it was, to reach all generations, and all the diverse groups that we have in our township, just to have something for everyone.
Estelle has done a big part in promoting recognition of the arts, and right now, of course, we have the East Brunswick Community Arts Center, and I played the piano there. I played in 2 concerts there. One was a violinist and one was a soloist, and that's a nice piano. So there's a concert grand, which Estelle is responsible for getting here.
Estelle is nothing if not determined. And when she decided that the East Brunswick Community Arts Center needed a concert caliber grand piano to mount professional concerts, she set about a plan to get one donated. My brother Larry was telling me that, that they would check Craigslist, they would go to various piano stores, throughout the area, put out the word in every possible way. And it took quite some time, but they finally heard about a donor in North Jersey. So they got into the car, they went up there, and they found out that he had a plan to donate his 9-foot piano to a college. But Estelle and Larry talked him out of it, and they ended up redirecting the piano here. The 9-foot Kauai Grand, Concert Grand, was brought to East Brunswick thanks to my mom paying a $2,000 finder's fee out of her own pocket to make it happen.
The East Brunswick Arts Commission was proud to debut a newly acquired 9-foot concert grand piano donated by Gregory Baird and Ned Wolfe of Morristown. The Arts Commission plans to use the piano for other concerts and the annual Young Musicians Concert in the spring.
If you were around in 2010 for the township's sesquicentennial, the 150th anniversary, you would have seen this pamphlet at many of the events celebrating the anniversary. It's the history of East Brunswick, and it was written by none other than the township historian, Estelle Goldsmith.
I met Estelle in 1967 and became a member of the Arts Commission approximately 8-9 years later. But all that time, I was learning more of her. I saw her as a dynamo coming through town, or being the leader of this or leader of that, because she too was active in many different areas. And I looked at her and learned from her. And so from the very beginning, I saw her as a mentor. doing what I love to do in teaching, but on a different level, because her audience was bigger than 8 classes a day.
If you were to meet with Estelle with an idea or a concept, a plan, if it was something Estelle liked, she would try to frame it to how it could happen. It didn't happen. If it didn't, she didn't like it, she would probably tell you to be quiet and walk away from you. Okay, that's her personality. Was that if she liked it, it was going to happen. If she didn't like it, she wasn't interested. And that's one of the things I liked about Estelle more than anything else, is I could sit in my office and give my opinions, and I was never sure how much was absorbed, how much was ignored, and where we're going to go with it next. But the second time I'd meet, we'd know how it was refined, either added to or subtracted from, or made possible or made even more impossible. But it was also Estelle's opinions could not be ignored. It had to be listened to, and she didn't necessarily have to listen to you to hear it, okay?
So my daughter went to Lawrence Brook School, which is right across from where Estelle lives. Yes. So one day we were passing by and we assigned for piano lessons, music lessons. And my daughter said, "Mom, I want to learn piano." All right, it's right there. So we go and we meet Estelle. Fell in love with her right away, just the way she is with the kids. I think my daughter was about 9 years old. Javi is her name. I'm not sure if Estelle remembers, but she learned from her a little over a year. She still plays some of those songs that she learned from Estelle. Tarantula is one of them.
Tarantula?
She knows the notes, and that's one of the things. My daughter's 24 now, by the way, so we're talking years ago, but she was such kind, beautiful woman. And with her kids, they did a performance at, I believe it was, is that the Historical Society we had?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So they did,
new building, but
yeah. And then I found out that Estelle was very active there too.
Oh yes,
right.
Yeah.
So that's how I met her, and I so proud that I know somebody who lives in my town, as intelligent.
Oh, God bless.
Whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of all Americans and affect every aspect of our lives, including education, creativity, community livability, the economy, social problem solving, and job creation. And whereas a coalition of 45 national arts and humanities organizations representing over 23,000 cultural organizations has formed the National Cultural Alliance and developed an annual month-long public awareness program to highlight the importance of the humanities and arts for all Americans, known as National Arts and Humanities Month. And whereas in recognition of National Arts and Humanities Month, the East Brunswick Arts Commission will be participating in and offering to the public a month-long series of events and programs. This tapestry of arts will include a display and activities at our Community is Fair, a coffee house series featuring local artists, an art exhibit in the library, and an excursion to the Michener Museum and Pennsylvania State Craft Festival. Make a Difference Day will be celebrated on October 23rd with the distribution of lap tapestries to those in need of a warm touch. Ongoing activities will include a new pursuit, the Arts Bulletin Board, as well as trips to operas and museums, photography contests, and arts and civic life. Now therefore be it proclaimed that William P. Neary, Mayor of the Township of East Brunswick, does hereby proclaim the month of October 1999 as Arts and Humanities Month in East Brunswick, and encourage residents to take part in the events that are planned for the Tapestry of Arts. Be it further proclaimed that the Mayor commends the members of the East Brunswick Arts Commission for their continued dedication to keeping the arts alive in our community by offering artistic, cultural, and educational programming for our residents. Thank you.
I know that Estelle's teaching of piano was very, very important to her. But I think it was even more important for her to find a place for her students that she had brought to a point where not only could they perform, but that they were examples of fine teaching as well. I know that she accepted our ideas, but had so many of her own. Could we bring somebody who knows the marimba? Can we bring somebody who is a concert pianist? We need a couple of violinists. Let's do a classical program. And then sometimes controversy, because in trying to bring classical music to a community that would prefer pops or jazz, it was difficult. You couldn't spoon feed the audience. You could build the field, but will they come? And sometimes we were disappointed in the lack of attendance, but we still pushed forward. And then Bunny Gittleman speaks to Estelle. Estelle brings it to the Arts Commission. We all discuss it. And now we're going to the opera every year. Joanna Baruch is giving pre-opera talks. And so when you talk bringing classical arts to the community, the sponsoring of trips to the different museums in New York, and Estelle coming with us and saying, we should really go, not only to the Museum of Modern Art, but we should be going to the cloisters, and all of these trips, we had busfuls.
In 2013, Estelle was 90, and she was one of the winners of the prestigious Russberry Making a Difference Award. This award honors unusual heroism and community service by New Jersey residents. Bunny Gittleman, who was a longtime colleague of Estelle's, provided the impetus for the application. I have to tell you, I was thrilled to see Mom on the stage with the other winners there. And she, there was an entire East Brunswick delegation that joined her in Mahwah for the ceremony. Jeff Litt from the township's Recreation Parks and Community Services Department was there. He took a picture of us, and I believe there's Betty Quackenboss was there, Anne and Manny Alvarez, Bunny, myself, my daughter Clara, and it was just a wonderful day.
The famous line that I've always known growing up from Shakespeare is that the meaning of life is to find your gift, but the purpose of life is to give that gift away. And that's what Estelle has done her entire life. It's like the Shel Silverstein book, The Giving Tree. She just keeps giving. And that, to me, makes somebody timeless. And that's really what Estelle is. So on behalf of the township, I will read to you our proclamation, and that is, whereas it is important for a community to recognize and honor citizens who selflessly give of their time and themselves to improve the quality of the life of others, as well as acknowledge the outstanding and noteworthy achievements of those citizens that go above and beyond. And whereas since moving to East Brunswick in 1957, Estelle Goldsmith has been an active and all-around member of the community through her volunteer work in the East Brunswick Arts Commission, the East Brunswick Historical Society, the East Brunswick Museum, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, the Middlesex County Cultural and Heritage Commission, and thereby preserving the culture, the history, and the art in East Brunswick, as has been appointed our local historian. And whereas Estelle, originally from New York City, had a vision that the cultural amenities found in the city should become part of suburban life. And she set out to accomplish this through the creation of the Concert Association in 1959, which brought acclaimed artists to the community to present performances. This association later became known as the East Brunswick Arts Council and later the East Brunswick Arts Commission, with Estelle remaining dedicated to the mission of making the arts accessible to everybody through free concerts and lectures. Currently, these concerts have been performed on the 9-foot grand piano that you see here that Estelle acquired for the community. And whereas Estelle has served on many capacities, including president of the East Brunswick Historical Society and founding member of the East Brunswick Museum Corporation, president emeritus of the East Brunswick Arts Commission, and chairmanship of the Middlesex Cultural and Heritage Commission. And whereas largely through her leadership and research, a historic district was created here in East Brunswick and placed on the state and national registries of historic places during the 1970s, and a 19th century church building renovated to become known as our own East Brunswick Museum. And whereas Estelle's boundless energy, vision, and passion for the arts and humanities has had a profound impact on our East Brunswick community. And whereas to commend her for 6 decades of volunteerism and proud community celebrates with an event to honor and thank Estelle Goldsmith. And whereas the community does not forget the importance of volunteerism and an appreciation for the work she has done in the fine and cultural arts of East Brunswick, a tree has been planted in Estelle's honor outside the Community Arts Center. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Brad Cohen, Mayor of the Township of East Brunswick, on behalf of a grateful community, do hereby commend Estelle Goldsmith for her lifelong work towards improving the cultural life of the residents and for representing herself and East Brunswick during her 61 years of volunteer service to this community.
My name is Karen Baum. I am the current president of the East Brunswick Arts Commission. I have a very big pair of shoes to fill. There's no question about Estelle's legacy in town, and I intend to honor that. Her spirit of volunteerism is unmatched. As you know, as far as I see, all the different commissions that she founded, and you just do it because you see a need, and that's what she did. One of my favorite memories about Estelle is her 100th birthday, out in front of her house in Lawrence Brook, and the balloons and the trumpeter and just the look on her face. It was joyous. And I looked around and I saw all the different kinds of people that were there. Everyone from the Human Relations Council and the Arts Commission and Historical Society and local leaders. It was just a beautiful event.
This huge crowd gathered outside Estelle's home. And I mean, the mayor came with a proclamation. There was a trumpet fanfares, EMT vehicles with their sirens blaring, going back and forth. You know, it was quite a situation there. And for me, I think the best part was seeing all the people from throughout Estelle's life. I spoke to a teacher there who was telling me how much she appreciated what the Young Musicians Project had done for her students. I ran into one of Estelle's former pupils who went on to conduct opera in Europe, and he had brought CDs of his performances to give to her. And, you know, various city employees who had collaborated with her on various projects. And, you know, just people who had known her through the years who heard about it through social media. And I think it brought out the best in Estelle that day. You know, for a little while there, she enjoyed putting on her public face again and delivering a few well-chosen words of thanks to everybody.
One thing that I have to give credit for to Estelle is that she certainly has inspired me for volunteerism and to continue to make East Brunswick, as great as it is, even better. There's always room for improvement. So I hope that you all realize the importance of volunteerism, and we should all leave this town better than it was when we first got here.
I'm really touched to see all of you. I know Mom is. You know, she's very modest. She's very modest. And, you know, but I know that she was excited about today. She was she was really touched that all of you put this together, you know, for her. And this is a real tribute to her. What is really remarkable is, you know, she came here as a housewife. You know, she was trained as a teacher, but she came here as a housewife, and in those days, newspapers referred to her as Mrs. Joseph J. Goldsmith. And through the years, she certainly became Estelle, you know. She had a vision, and she had determination, but she also was remarkably persuasive. She was good with people. She was convincing, and she knew the power of showing them. If they could just experience the arts, if they could just experience history, you know, they'd want it. They'd need it just as much as she did. So I think that, you know, we need leaders like that. You know, she learned how to operate in the public sphere. She learned how to interact with government. She got very sophisticated in her interactions, but throughout the whole thing, you know, she had many, many devoted followers in all of these organizations who were inspired by her, just as I was.
How do you measure achievements? How do you measure, history, development, the growth of our town into being rich? I mean, it added to the people who wanted to come to East Brunswick. I mean, we're sitting in the library today. We have a very, very good library because Estelle and people like Estelle would come into town and make this important part, the education part, the arts part, the history part. People like Estelle were all part of, not necessarily the school system, not necessarily, but the community itself. The community gets its richness and its depth from people like Estelle. And I think that's really, it's hard to pin down one thing and one person can do. But when you have a legacy of decades of adding to the town, it bled off into so many other people. She became mentors to so many people. She became leaders to so many other people. She inspired so many people. We don't know, when we see the East Brunswick Symphony Orchestra performing now, how many of them were desired to perform music, to go through high school and learn music because somebody learned a piano lesson from Estelle. You don't know all those numbers, but at the same time, that's the richness of our community. And that's why when she came to my office, I couldn't say no because I knew she was going to add more than subtract. And she's a person who had a tenacity, has an assertiveness, bordering on aggressiveness, but all done with a compassion and all done with a purpose. And I think that's where Estelle's legacy is something for our town to really remember. And when you look at the history of our town, and I was fortunate enough to see a lot of it myself growing up and living here for so long, to be part of, be able to contribute my part by taking some of her ideas and making them into reality.
So we're still the same framework basically, except I think that Estelle's passion was classical music. And as a piano teacher, I completely understand that. She was, as you know, I'm sure people have mentioned it by now, a New York transplant who was trying to find cultural activities in East Brunswick and wasn't finding them. So she decided to try to make it happen herself. So the East Brunswick Arts Commission has always done a lot of classical programming, whether that's through the symphony or individual performers. My goal is to be able to reach more people in East Brunswick, because I think that if you just do one kind of programming, you're reaching one group of people. So we're looking to do more family events, more cultural events. It is important, though, that we do continue with the classical program. We should and we will do that.
Estelle had I don't know, were there like 7 or 8 members on the council, on the Arts Commission? I have to tell another story if I can, because I don't know where it's going to fit in here, but when I first became a member of the Arts Council, Estelle took me on a ride throughout East Brunswick to show me, because she was also president of the Historical Society, and she was showing me buildings and historic structures that she wanted to save in her work for the Historical Society, which she managed to do some of that, save some of those structures. And then, I had learned about her, the years she had done long before I became part of the commission, her years of the Young Musicians program that she had nurtured throughout the years. And on that ride going through East Brunswick and the passion that she had for these old, dilapidated buildings, I knew I knew Estelle was a remarkable individual, and it still amazes me that I can maybe count on one hand the people I have known in my life who have devoted their service voluntarily to enrich the culture and preserve the history of a community. She's like at the top of that list. In a very unassuming way, but very persistent. Estelle had this drive to get these things done. And that has impressed me, that when you think about it, how many people have you met in life who have devoted their life's work to giving back to the community, to enhancing the cultural life of the community, to preserving the history of that community. So I'm just feel privileged that I've had a chance to work with her over the years and get to know her.
Claudia, it was Claudia Johnson. She was the otherwise known as Lady Bird Johnson, the wife of the president. She once commented that an organization, any organization, is only as good as the most knowledgeable and determined and vigorous person in it. Usually one person, and that person kind of provides the flame for what you refer to as the flame of the organization. And Estelle is one of those people that's provided the flame in East Brunswick for a lot of organizations, including the Arts Commission.
Really, I just want to say thank you to Estelle from the bottom of my heart for everything that she's done for me and really for all my students, because it's her legacy and it goes on through all of us and our kids and the students, and it just makes for a better next generation.
I think that Estelle has been a fortunate person to have chosen a path of volunteerism, using her knowledge to feed her on a constant basis with the joy of giving, but most specifically of giving us the joys of art.
I think that for Estelle, sharing it with people, it made her feel so good. She got so much satisfaction and fun out of it, about all these things that could be brought to East Brunswick and unearthed in East Brunswick. And it helped, people find parts of themselves that they didn't know existed. They saw things as art, they heard music in their everyday lives. It just became a part of their lives in a way that it would not have been if she had just, gone to museums herself or gone to concerts herself. She shared it with everybody, and that was the joy.